Hey, everybody, it's Jonathan. I'm here with Jason Law, founder of the great organization One Mission. One Mission has grown from $0 to $3 million over the past 10 years. Just an incredible organization. And Jason, thanks for giving us a few minutes today. And Jason, we're talking about impact evaluation. And I really just have two questions connected with this topic for you. And the first one is, how have you or how do you right now measure impact connected with your work at One Mission?
hmm Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Welcome. Um, so before I talk about maybe the how and the what, let's talk a little bit maybe about the why. Just to make that simple. I think from the time we started One Mission, I think my leadership style, but certainly some of the things that are in our culture have been based on this narrative of like beginning with the end in mind. And I think that principle or value or whatever you want to call it has driven then a lot of the decisions we make, from a small decision of, do we want to do a gala, or do we want to do a bike ride, or do we want to do this event? Well, begin with the end in mind. What's the ROI we're looking for, and then reverse engineer it. But on a larger scale, I would say philosophically, let's say, beginning with the end in mind of, if we were to write a narrative, and we do this is a board exercise that we do once a year. Our board does a retreat, and we'll do a board exercise where we'll go 10 years in the future, and we'll be a reporter, and we'll write a report on where the organization, what it's doing. So it could be, well, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, we're winning Pulitzer prizes, whatever we think is realistic. But it's a way for our dreams to kind of consolidate. The point being, you begin with this and you start to visualize backwards. Well, when you're a community development organization, it hopefully looks something along the lines of, we've got X, Y, and Z outcomes. These types of things are increasing and decreasing. Outputs look like this. And those measurables then can start to reverse engineer a mission statement, an operations plan, and then certainly quarterly objectives. Now, if you're great at reverse engineering those things and then creating these objectives, then it becomes a reverse way of looking at advancing whatever your mission is. So all that to say, philosophically, I think the idea of beginning with the end in mind is a principle that once you would, I think about and adopt, it's like, well, then all operations should point towards some sort of objectives, meaning, why are we expending this energy or this dollar to this activity if this activity isn't pointing towards something that we could be measurable? Now, I know that there's some danger in that, especially when we talk about the gospel and things like that, in terms of not everything has to be measured to be great, obviously. But I'll just pause there and just say, I think philosophically, before we even talk about what we measure, it's more about why we measure things. And I think from a stewardship standpoint, I would use that word, that I think to raise any amount of money, anybody in the organization should be able to answer the question that, this dollar is being stewarded to this activity slash these are the results of that fruit. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. Right. We have to have a sense of what we're trying to get accomplished, right? And what God's calling us to do. The goal is to not just stay busy as a nonprofit. The goal is to make a difference and make an impact and get some things done. And so we've got to understand that first. And then that ripples into, right, what it looks like to see, are we being successful at that? And
Yeah,
specifically how to look at that. And then, of course, that leads to being able to actually measure, are we getting done what we feel like we're supposed to be getting done?
that's right. And that is a fine line. And we've helped start a lot of organizations, or helped coach a lot of startup nonprofits, which I love to do. And the question is always, well, what does success look like?
Mhm.
Success doesn't have to be measured against something or somebody else. It can be success usually defined by whatever the leadership team thinks they can accomplish. And I think It could be very small or big, depending
Mhm.
on what you're comparing it to. But if you're a dog rescue center and you rescue one dog, that could be huge success if that's what your goal was. I
Right.
wouldn't say goals are what we wake up to like do. I think they're a way to, again, whether you call them goals, strategic objectives, KPIs, whatever you want to call them in business school, in for profit, it's usually driven by your profits, meaning that's the ultimate scorecard. And if that flutters, then you're probably going to go out of business. And so it's real easy then to determine what you should be wake up spending your money on or your energy on or your human resources. Meaning, if you're a landscaping company and a bunch of people want you to start cleaning pools, you're like, well, I'm not going to have my landscaping guys clean pools because they don't know what they're doing and we can't clean pools. And then now I got to charge for something I don't even know, and it falls apart real quick in your head because you're like, I just don't see line of sight to success there. I'm a landscaping company. But when you're a nonprofit and you're here to save the world or save all the poor people or, do whatever, it's real easy, and myself included, it's real easy to get the mission drift in the all senses of the word, where yeah, we'll do clinics and we'll build houses
Mhm.
and we'll mobilize doctors and we'll do vaccines, and then you end up diluting and you become really shallow, I think, in the output outcome delivery sector. And that's an opinion, but I've experienced running your staff really thin, and you end up going, what do we exist for? At
Right.
this point, what are we even measuring and what does success look like? It becomes like 19 different things. And that's a hard organization to lead. All that to say, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just, I'm just saying it's hard and usually inefficient when you have 19 different things. And now we can get into the what we measure, but I think the philosophy is important.
Yeah, no, it's got to start right there. That's perfect. So yeah, talk a little bit about then how at One Mission you guys measure impact, understanding that you're clear on what you're supposed to be doing. So what are some things you look at? How do you measure that impact? And then we'll move
Mhm.
into how you communicate with your base about that.
Yeah. I mean, from the beginning, we were passionate about housing specifically, and then in the housing process, developing lives, families, and communities. And so the first thing that was easy for us to measure is how many houses are we going to build a year? And so from there, that was easy for us, or easy, I'd say, to develop a budget. As you say, we want to build 50 houses. Well, houses cost 10,000, so we need 10 times 50, and off we go.
Mhm.
So for us, houses are what we would say the top main output. We don't call them outcomes, but an output, something we can clearly measure that's a house or a well or whatever, that's an output. But we are also really interested in what the activity is surrounding each house. So each family earns X amount of hours. We measure how many hours are earned in a community, how many hours are earned in a family, and then what those hours are yielding, meaning how many community gardens are involved in that community, how many people are graduating with the equivalent of a GED by earning their hours, how many people are, what types of activities are they
Sure.
doing that we can measure. So we mainly measure houses built, number of hours served, and then some community outputs such as community gardens, number of people graduated from XYZ program. And then we also measure our revenue, our top line revenue as a main strategic objective, if you will. And then trip participants, number of people that actually come on mission with us and participate. On smaller levels, you break all those out and we say, okay, well, our revenue needs to be $3 million. And then you've got 9 different ways you come up with that 3 million. Those are in for profit, maybe profit centers, but we call them just line item revenue line items. Those could be events, trips, fee for service, whatever. But all of those have monthly, quarterly objectives that from a leadership standpoint, that's how I'm getting optics into, are we trending up or down in terms of hitting our quarterly and monthly revenue goals. But along with those monthly and quarterly are, how many houses did we project to build in January? Are we trending in the right direction? And we have dashboards that we can, we look at from a leadership standpoint, but also that I want our team and a lot of our board and even a lot of our support base has access to some of these closer KPIs or strategic objectives. But I could go on and on and on, but
Yeah.
at the top level, there's about 3 or 4 things that we talk about a lot in terms of measuring, and that's what we communicate to our tribe, our, you know, our base of people, and we hope that it's in line, and we'll get into that, I guess, aligning your objectives with the audience who's supporting it, right? That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. So it sounds like, right, you guys are clear as leadership. You know what you're trying to get done. So you're measuring those specific outputs. And then also, it sounds like what's important is that your people, your base, they're in alignment with what you're trying to get done and what they're giving to help make happen. And they understand how that's trending as well. So, talk a little bit about that alignment and then a little bit about how you communicate with your people as far as what's getting done out there.
Mhm. Well, it it's more of a science than it is a playbook. I mean, nobody gets it right. I think we've learned some things, but a lot of what we've learned is actually refining our mission and refining some of our narratives, actually communicates clearer and articulates both internally to your own staff why we exist and what we're trying to accomplish. But certainly, I think I don't know who said this, some pastor I think I heard it from, but said if it's a mist in your team's eyes, it's like it's invisible to outsiders, meaning if it's
Sure.
not really clear inside what we're trying to show up to do every day for work, good luck trying to communicate to let alone friends and family, but certainly any tiers beyond that. So that would be my first, I don't know, advice. But aligning your mission with we'll call them tribe, or you know, our tribe or our partners, right? We call them our partners, and our VP of partnerships, which is the equivalent to a development director. um, our VP of partnerships is titled as such. These are partners. Well, in a partnership, there should be a really clear understanding of what their expectations are on what they're giving towards, and then there should be a clear expectation to the deliverers what we're trying to deliver. Excuse my birds, but with that, some of that could just be you know, just easy market research, where we did bring in about 2 dozen different um, partners who were either consistent givers, large donors. Maybe they came on a bazillion mission trips with us. Maybe they just volunteered everything we ever asked them. A couple of them were maybe ex-employees. Bring them into a room and start asking them, why are you involved? Why were you involved? Not because you're going to ask them for anything more, but this is good feedback to hear back if you value their opinion, meaning they will tell you the things that mattered to them. And if those things are on a completely different page of why you exist, then you've got some work to do. Meaning, this happened to us a couple years in. Um, I got this tip from a marketing company to do this. We brought in some people. I did this exercise, and a lot of the people in the room said, "We love coming on mission trips. Mission trips are the only reason why I was involved in one mission is because I want to go and build a house in Mexico." And in my head, I'm thinking that is the last reason why we started. We started to lift people out of poverty and to develop communities. Mission trips are just a means to that end. And I had to, I guess, wrestle with how are we communicating what's important to us, and is that in line with what's important with the people? Meaning, they all are important, mission trips and everything, but we have intentionally focused more on our community development and the housing process and those things, mostly because that's what we care about and that's what we feel like we're on mission to do. And then the tribe, some of them, most of them now, I think, are on board with that. But meaning, if in the beginning we wanted to do housing and we had people wanting to do medical clinics, which happened, then we said we're not going to do medical clinics because it's mission drift and all these things. Well, you might lose some support.
Sure.
No problem. It's to the kingdom. But as a leader, it's okay to refine, is what I'm saying, is focus that mission almost to a laser point, so that the general public, people outside of friends and family, can say, oh, that's what they do. They are a children's hospital. They're not just a hospital. You know, I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yeah, no, no, I think it is. I think again, right. I hadn't thought about the alignment piece there, but it's not just enough for leadership to know, and like you said, to know why you're going to work every day, right? But your base has to understand what that focus is, right? Because as they give, they're giving to help make all of the stuff that you're trying to get done. They're giving to help make all that happen. And so I think there's got to be alignment there. And when there is alignment, that becomes the perfect marriage, right? When everybody's on the same page, this is the difference we feel like God's calling us to make. One mission saying that, the partners are saying that's what we want to help make happen. Everybody's sort of in it together, and that momentum really starts to flow quite aggressively, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of analogies you could use, sports analogies, all these.
Yeah,
Again, winning isn't everything. It's not about what's the win. I mean, I don't want this to sound like, and I think there is some philosophy to it's not always about goals and like, I mean, there's an
sure,
idea of being present with we're here today and God's called us to do this, and
that's
it
right.
doesn't matter what we're trying to do tomorrow. All we're given is today.
Yeah.
But there is something very motivating that can't be denied by aligning a whole audience of people, a team, et cetera, as you're mentioning, and then accomplishing something that everyone was on the same page of doing. And the tighter you can get that, I think the more fun things become and simpler they become.
Yeah.
I will tell you, as we've refined our mission, I think things have gotten simpler.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and we haven't refined our mission or what drives our mission. I mean, from a faith-based standpoint or from whatever, we've refined it. We've always been about houses. We've always been clear about that. But we've refined it from a here's what we won't do, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That was more that was harder to do than trimming things. It was here's what we won't do. We are not going to build wells in Africa. We can't do that great. We don't think we're not going to build schools and wherever. And I can tell you as a leader, especially, we have people that come to us and people with means and capacity to give, and they'll say, well, can you help us do X, Y, or Z? And I try to be as humble and honest as I can and say, that's not our jam. Like, there's
Mhm.
some other people that I know can do that really well. And the same's been received. We've had people that have called us, said, you guys do housing and community development better than anyone we know. And they do wells. And I think all that to say, I think that's some of the fruit that comes from refining. Now, many of you watching are probably like, okay, well, our mission statement's clear. I've got these clear KPIs. This is irrelevant to me. It may be relevant on the smallest scale of measuring whether or not you do a gala this year or whether you but every other year or these other things where it can be applied to all these things of where are we trying to go from the top down? These are our
Yeah.
objectives. What are the best tactics to get there? And it's not always doing the same thing every year.
Right. Right.
That's a whole
Yeah.
nother topic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jason, just in our last minute here or so, what are some things that pop to mind for you as far as how you guys communicate impact to your base?
Mhm.
Year-end reports, stuff that happens all throughout the course of the year. What kind of communication are you putting out there? How do you try to really keep people in the loop and the partners in the loop on what their gifts and dollars are accomplishing out there?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for us, some of it can be as simple as anecdotal information, which is real easy in nonprofits. Anecdotal stories. Here's a house. Those are outputs that are anecdotal. Those are off the shelf, easy for nonprofits. I think we try to be a little bit um, deeper than that in the sense of here were our goals for the year, and here's where we're measuring up. And then if we're falling behind, here's where you can help, or if we want to, if there's a call to action or whatever. But getting back to houses built, number of people on trips. Those are things that we try to communicate to our tribe to motivate them to, again, everything we were
Mhm.
just talking about, but certainly call them to action if needed. Last year was a great example of that with COVID. And I'm sure for many nonprofit leaders, like your budget just shrinks very quickly. And, there's a lot of here's what our goal is, here's what we needed. So I think communicating high level metrics, that's just almost industry standard for us. Annual report, things like that, especially when you start getting over seven figures in revenue, there's industry standard of what's expected to be able to be transparent. So I think without stating the obvious, um, we try to be a little fun about letting people see inside the organization. Here's a new hire, here's a funny story going on, or here's a tragic story that,
Mhm.
you know, is deeper than maybe would go into an e-news, but there's a whole video production about it. So we try to, as we would say, and we call them our partners, bring our partners as close to the families as possible. That's a principle.
Mhm.
So how can we virtually or physically bring our partners, whether they're major sponsors or whether they're a monthly donor or whether they've come on one trip, what are the best tactics to connecting people to people, not people to projects? And so a lot of our marketing and communication um, principles are around people to people, not people to projects. So that's behind the scenes in terms of we want to communicate people's stories, not necessarily look at this house, look at this
Right.
amazing product, look at our new state of the art foam, whatever. Like, we like to brag about that stuff, but we intentionally keep most all of our communication people to people. And for those who maybe follow some of the One Mission stuff, hopefully that resonates. You see, yeah, I see that, because we intentionally try to do that because we think that's what people care about, because that's what we care about. Like,
Yeah.
our staff doesn't come to work every day because we have state of the art foam houses, or because it's because of the family that they've met, or all these, it's because of the family. So I
Yeah.
think that should be known. What does your audience want to hear? What do they care about? Not because you're trying to pull something out of them, but because that's the partnership.
That's right.
It's not transactional, but that's a relationship. Like,
Yep.
to me, it's what stories are relevant at Thanksgiving when you haven't seen your family for a long time? Probably not a bunch of business stories.
Mhm.
Probably not a bunch of numbers. Probably here's how my life's going. So it's similar, obviously,
Yeah.
thought process of what's relevant to what they care about. And that question, I'll end with that. That is a hard question because you may underestimate what they actually care about or overestimate what they care about. And sometimes we mass produce communication and don't
That's
realize
right.
that they don't care about that stuff. What they really needed or wanted was just a FaceTime phone call from a leader from the field, and that would go way farther than
Yeah.
these excellent e-newses for a year. Easier said than done, but that's
Yeah. And
that's one of the best ways to communicate.
absolutely right. And that speaks to understanding partners, understanding their journey, what they care about, why they're involved in our organization in this cause, and then communicating to them in the right way and reporting on impact in the right way. So yeah, just great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason, for just your few minutes today. Really appreciate it. Um, I don't know what kind of birds you're raising out there, but
They're
I
just
hope
wild,
that
but
continues to go well
thank you.
in your backyard sanctuary there. So, but no, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.